Welcome to the weekly Ball and All Reading the Play podcast. Welcome, Mr. Matrix. I see you've got a Mark Hughes beanie on.
I have, yes, the Mark Hughes Foundation Beanies for Brain Cancer. It's this week, folks, and I went to IGA. You can go to IGA, you can go to Woolies, you can go to Lowe's, or you can buy them online, clearly for a wonderful cause.
Yeah, fantastic round. I love how they all, how we see all the players wearing them in their press conferences during the week, running out with them. Great initiative. Again, the game right behind it. That's excellent. So, but I tell you what, have a look at the draw. Haven't we got a cracking round starting on Thursday night?
I think there's some upsets too.
Yeah, well, that's like them saying that we'll have a long, dry winter. Correct. It's like saying that the form guide will just run through, and the winners will be winners, and we'll end up with pretty much a 6 out of 8 top 8 that everyone predicted. And I don't think you could predict anything at the moment.
No, well, you only have to look at the table and the fact that we've got, outside, I think, the top 4 or 5 teams, you've got so many that have got either an equal win-win record, win-loss record, or a win and more loss record. Anywhere from position 8 onwards down the table. So that's a lot of spots. Have got a losing record at the moment after 16 weeks.
What do you just on that?
It's very open.
Okay, so if we just have a look at the ladder, what's your summation when we have a look at the numbers of what's going to maybe come down to for and against for your top 8? For number 8, what do you reckon the points will be?
Well, normally it's sort of, 11, 12 wins get you in. We're 16 rounds in, and we've only got 5 teams that have won 50%, won 8 games out of 16 rounds, and the most games played is 15. So I think it may well be slightly lower this year because we've got all of those teams from positions 5 all the way to 17 taking wins off each other and rotating. So certainly your for and against is incredibly important, but teams 11 down to 17 are all well, you may as well say from 12 down to 17 because the Panthers only have a plus 1 point position on their differential. So it's incredibly open. You need to string some wins together. I think the Raiders, the Bulldogs, the Storm all look like they're going to be in the top 4.
Hang on.
The Warriors.
So Raiders, Bulldogs, Storm all look like they're in the top 4. Agree? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Warriors
I think
a bit shaky?
Well, I think you can nearly pencil them in. They just don't need any more key injuries.
Yeah.
They've lost Barnett. We're still waiting for updates on whether Metcalf plays this week or whether he might be out for a couple of weeks. They just don't want to drop a few more games right now. But, gee, I think it really falls away then, Stephen. I can't see that the Sharks are a challenger. I can't see the Broncos being a challenger. I can't see the Roosters being a challenger.
Is this to the top 4 or just going anywhere from if they potentially make the 8?
Yeah, that's right. I clearly the Sharks are in free fall right now, and we'll get to them in a few minutes. But, if they don't get this defensive attitude right, it's not going to matter how many points they're scoring. And, to throw that game away like they did last week was just horrible. And that's, 3 really poor losses in their last 4 games. Everybody in the media at the present moment is patting the Broncos on the back for being in 5th spot. Seriously, we go back 2 weeks ago, they beat the Titans. Well, we know that's horrible form. They should have got beat by the Sharks. Prior to that, their record was terrible. I think they're in desperate trouble to make the 8 still. We're now got the Dolphins with all of these injury issues that they have. They're walking a bit of a tightrope. We've got the Panthers sneaking up on everybody. They're the only side really with any substance.
What was that?
No idea. Was that your phone or?
No, I don't know what happened there. Anyway, some gremlin, some little gerbil in the system.
So incredibly open.
Okay, righto. Well, we will give an update after this weekend on the tipping comp, but you can jump on there and have a bit of a look. We've got a full round, which is good. Really looking forward to this. It's a cracking round, which I think we will see the Roosters having the bye. Good time for them to have the bye. Just on them. Their
It is.
form's been very, very good. Just on them, I mean, you were keen on them not to make the 8 on the back of their squad and their draw. What's your sort of updated view on how they're tracking, because their form has been good? Do you think they'll make the 8?
I still think they're line ball. I think they've got a tough run home, Stephen. They've still got the Sharks, the Storm, the Dolphins, the Bulldogs, and the Storm again. And last week of the season, they get the Rabbits. So that draw is not soft. My bet was for them to win 11 or less.
Mm.
Well, at the moment, they're on, what was it again, 6 or 7 wins. They are on 7 wins. So, it's not straightforward. They're going to get Sammy Walker back. That's going to help them. But, they've ended up with a key injury to Wong. Radley's out now for 3 or 4 weeks with, HIA precaution. But I will say Robinson's done an outstanding job. The win over the Sharks a couple of weeks ago, and the win over the Cowboys was very good. They're a threat. I still think they're line ball.
Mm.
You're right, though. The bye couldn't have come at a better time for them.
Yep. Okay, let's get into the round. Thursday night, so tomorrow night, 7:50, the Panthers at home, but it's CommBank Stadium. Keep that in mind. They are up against the Bulldogs, so we've got first versus 8, and the Panthers coming off, one hell of a spirited performance last week against the Warriors in New Zealand. Bulldogs are flying high. If you talk to any Bulldog supporter, you run into any Bulldog supporter, you will get tied up for about an hour about how good they are. Are they the real deal? This will be are they the real deal going into the back end of the season? This will be a really, really good test, I think.
Well, and just as we start to talk about the Bulldogs, Stephen, this, as you say, this is a ripper test. Then next week they have the Broncos. The following week they have the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys will start to improve slightly. Then in round 23, they've got the Warriors. Round 24, they've got the Roosters. Round 25, they've got the Storm. Round 26, get the Panthers again. And round 26, finish with the Sharks. This is the Bulldogs we're talking. They've got a very tough run home. I have not had any bets on the Bulldogs to win the competition because I want to see if they're going to be the real deal.
How they get through this part of the draw. Just on that draw, does Gus have any, can he change the draw if he decides that he just wants to change the draw?
Well, give him a couple of weeks.
Okay, right. So if they lose this weekend, maybe he's got something in his Channel 9 contract that he can tweak the draw a bit to get him into the, where they should be.
Actually, to his credit, I heard him absolutely ripping shreds off the NRL about the 6 again and what a farce of a rule it is on 100% footy on Monday night. And I was in the background cheering and clapping Stephen, as we all know.
Yeah,
what a stupid rule it is.
Yeah, I totally agree on that.
Listen, this is a ripper matchup. The market has 2.5 points between them. Would you believe the Panthers, 4-time defending premiers, are the underdog? It's very rare that they are. They've won the last 7 against the Bulldogs, got a very good matchup record here.
All Origin players back?
All Origin players back. Cleary, it appears to be playing. And as you suggested, games at CommBank Stadium and not Homebush, which would have given the Bulldogs, I would have thought, a bit more of an advantage. Listen, I'm actually going for the upset. I think the Bulldogs are going to find this really tough. You and I discussed, if we go back a couple of weeks ago.
Hang on. So the upset is that the Panthers win?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Well, they're the underdogs.
No. Well, you just, you don't know how people frame these markets because, they've won 4 premierships in a row. So
yeah,
I know with the bookies, the Bulldogs are what, $1.68, $1.70. Panthers are sort of $2.20. So yep, I agree with you.
And you and I discussed it a couple of weeks ago. I mean, but for Parramatta self-imploding with their own errors in the second half of that game was line ball. And then they, had a very spirited comeback against the Rabbitohs last game. They come off a bye. They also get some rep-ins. Ripper game. I'm with the Panthers, and I would have thought the +2.5, and I think it's a really close contest.
Totally agree.
And for those listening, Stephen, who want to go and do a little bit of research, do a little bit of research about the official appointment for this game. It's very interesting.
Official appointment.
Mm.
What's the non-official appointment?
No, the official, the man with the whistle,
Okay. Right. Who is it?
Grant Atkins.
Okay. Say no more.
And very rare that he gets a Panthers game. But I tell you the other thing to keep an eye on, Stephen, I wonder if he's been elevated to the game of the round. And if you look at a couple of the other official appointments this week, whether that leads us to suspecting that there may be a change of who gets Origin 3.
Well, that'd be good because the guy who had Origin 1 and 2 is a fucking spastic. Anyway.
Tell us what you really think.
I don't mind referees, but I find it really hard to watch games refereed by Mr. Ashley Klein. And
No argument from me.
I just think there's better choices. That's
Yeah.
more to the point. I just don't see how he week in, week out ranks as their number one referee. I just don't. They're not watching the same game that we're watching. Righto, Friday night, 6 p.m. The Tigers are going across to Four Pines Park to take on the Sea Eagles. After all their 7-minute reviews, is everything all right in Sea Eagle territory?
No, I don't think so. And I think they're a massive risk of getting beat here, even back at Brookvale. They're off that bye. They're missing three big guys in the middle, but it just looks a bit of a shambles to me at the moment. That loss to the Titans reeked of a team that gave up and gave up early. The Titans, as we saw last week with the Eels rolling them, they're not that good. And they're not that good to be putting 28 points and winning by a 20-point margin against the Eagles. And it was all through the middle. It was soft. The gaps opened way too easy. He's now making all these team changes. It just reeks of some panic. They need Cherry Evans and Brooks to aim up, but they need some significant aim ups in the middle. And listen, the Tigers have lost their last 5, but peel it back a little bit more. They've played the Raiders last week, the Panthers the week before. 4 weeks ago, 4 games ago, they played the Rabbitohs, and 5 games ago, they played the Storm. They've actually come through a tough form line and only got beat by the Panthers by 4, only got beat by the Raiders last week by 4. I like Latu at 7. I think they've got the forwards to trouble them. I like the Tigers to upset, and I think the plus 6.5 is a great show.
Yep. Okay. I don't disagree with you on that. Righto, Friday night, Knights versus the Raiders. A couple of changes in the Knights side. They don't have their informed 5'8". I mean, did you read up or get the rundown on his injury?
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, he's
Gee, spleen. He would have been in some pain. Does the Ricky Juggernaut continue to bounce along? Raiders taking on the Knights.
Well, I think they do. I think they keep winning, but I just think there's an air of caution about being careful if you're betting around them at the line. So last week they were 10-point favourites against the Tigers. They got out to a wide margin of 16-0, but sort of coast through the second half and the Tigers were much better. They only won by 4. And speaking of the Raiders, Stephen, they play the Knights this week clearly. Then they've got the Dragons, the Eels, the Knights again, then the Dragons again, then they play Manly, then they play Penrith, then they play the Tigers, then they play the Dolphins. Now, we'd probably argue that there's only probably 2 of that run home that might really cause some trouble. I would suggest that they're entrenched in the top 4. They'll go about resting players, rotating players. So Hudson Young gets a break this week. I'm sure that Papali'i, I'm sure that Tarpany and a few other guys get a bit of a break. The Knights last week, they got all their ins that included, Ponga back from rep duty, best played. They now have Dom Young on a wing. They had Frizzell back. They got Safidi back. Much stronger team, and it was the most positive they've been with the football for many weeks. I think the Raiders do enough to win, but in Newcastle, and remembering it's the Mark Hughes Foundation weekend, it'll be a full house. It'll be very pumped. I think the plus 7.5 to the Knights is where I'd be. But I like the Raiders to just get the win.
Yeah. Gee, that's a good draw, isn't it, for the Raiders? Really is.
Huge advantage.
Saturday's lineup of games is pretty bloody handy, actually. 3 games. We've got the Broncos versus the Warriors. These are always good games. It's in Suncorp, so sorry, at Suncorp in Brizzy. You would think that, I don't know, you'd have to think that might even, it's an afternoon game, might even be a full house.
Well, yeah, with all the Kiwis, it will be. I mean, they always fill Suncorp and they always fill Rabina,
So
bro.
thank you, Reese Welsh, bro. Righto, Katoni, bro. Selwyn, not bro. Okay, right, let's get into this one. Dear. Can they string two in a row?
Well, listen, I'm against them for the rest of the season. I just
The
don't
Broncos?
like, I don't like what I'm seeing. And I reckon that win last week was as soft as wet tissue. They were down for the count by the Sharks, and the Sharks completely crumbled. They should have won that by at least 2 to 3 tries. The week before, beating the Titans, I mean, that's just got no form to it.
Mm.
The worry about the Warriors is, and I'm waiting for some updates to come out in New Zealand today, because the Warriors trained this morning. Now, the mail is that Metcalf has a cork, so it's not a groin injury, but a cork. So is he going to be right to play this week? He's been named. He was at training this morning. Nakure in the front row also was at training. If those two blokes play, I think the Warriors win. I think they've got the power through the middle that will really trouble the Broncos, which is where they just continue to keep being opened up. And the Broncos, Stephen, Reece Walsh has done his PCL, right? I mean, he nearly didn't play in that game purely off what was happening in the warm-up last
Yeah,
week.
yeah, that's right.
I mean, Payne Haas has probably got 4 injuries at the moment. The bloke needs 4 weeks rest, yet just keeps backing up. And aside from them, I think through the middle, they're just very soft. I like the Warriors to win, upset, and plus 5.5. Thank you. Was
Okay.
that the Uber driver or?
No, I don't. That was an alarm going off where I agree. I've got alarms set here. Yeah,
I see.
they
Okay.
go off when we agree because we don't agree too much.
What happens in this next game then?
Well, let's just get to this game. I agree. Actually, I agree. I agree on Panthers. I agree on Tigers. I agree on Raiders. I agree on Warriors.
There you
Oh my
go.
God, this is a worry. Righto, let's go on to Saturday afternoon, 5:30, down in Wynn Stadium, Wollongong. Mr. Lomax returns with the Eels to take on the Dragons. I wouldn't say they're the happy Dragons.
Did you dare say that this was a highlight game, 1 of 3 on the Saturday?
I think it'll be. I'm enjoying watching the improvement week in week out of the Eels, especially in attack.
Couldn't agree
So
more.
that's a highlight for me. I'm not enjoying watching the Dragons. So yeah.
You know, the Eels have actually won the last 4 head-to-head and longer term have an excellent record. Won that game back in round 5, which went the Golden Point, which was the Eels' first win for the season. Now, they've got 5 wins. The problem is 4 of them have been at Commonwealth Bank at Parramatta Stadium. So winning away has not been their strong suit. And off that win over the Titans last Sunday night, they then lose Smith and Panasini, in addition to already having Moses out, which is not ideal. Dragons get Sewer back, play at the Gong, but come off 2 very poor losses. I found it very difficult to split, Stephen. I just went with the home team in your beloved Dragons. Did you know I got both right last week? I got the Dragons right last week and I got the Eels right last week.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm losing faith in Flano. We must trust. I think you're
Okay.
possibly right, just purely on the back of the couple of outs that the Eels have. No Moses, Dylan Brown comes back in. No Riley Schmidt, and who's the other one that's been suspended?
Panasini.
So
In
on the
case you
back.
missed it, the Dragons beat the bye last week.
Yeah, but it was a very good buy. It was a very impressive win. They really held in there. Lots of resolve.
I think they had a barbecue afterwards.
Yeah, and their halfback, Mr. Flanagan, his kicking game was outstanding. Like outstanding.
Didn't get
Anyway,
caught with the ball on the last tackle.
he doesn't do that, and I think he averages kicking the ball about 47 metres. He's the worst in the league. I think I could kick further than that. But anyway, let's move on to Saturday night, 7:50. I love the way
Is a
the
good one.
Rabbitohs are hanging in there. You know, they've still got guys to come back, but geez, Wayne Bennett sides, they just do not turn it up. Dolphins, Rabbits at Suncorp. 3:00, you get in and watch the Broncos Warriors, and then all the bros go home. You exit, come back in. At 7:50, we got the Dolphins Rabbitohs.
So what happens? I agree with you totally about the Rabbitohs. Now let's look at their run home. So at the moment, there's
Mm.
6 wins. They sit in spot number 12, but they're only 2 wins off those below them, 1 or 2 wins. But we look at, they've got still a tough run home. Now, we did say at the start of the season, of all 17 teams when we did our draw analysis, they had the toughest draw, which has certainly been the case. But this run home, so they got the Dolphins, then they get the Eagles. I think they'll pick the Eagles up at the right time. Then it gets tough again because they get the Panthers, the Sharks, the Broncos. Then they get a bit of relief. I don't know how many spots they improve themselves, but you're 100% right. This week they get Walker and Graham back, a stronger bench and forward lineup. And off the back of losing 4, I think they get their chance to beat the Dolphins in Brisbane. I mean, I love the Dolphins. I'd love to see them make the 8. I want to see them winning again. I thought that was a poor loss last week to the Knights over in Perth, but they now pick up Bostock, gone for the season. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 guys that are key starters gone for the year. And then add to that Kafusi.
So Bostock's gone for the full year, is he? He's gone.
Yep, he's ACL.
That's a
ACL. Yeah, that's significant. So Dolphins favourites, I wasn't sure why or how, given all of the player-ins for the Rabbitohs. I like the Rabbits, plus 4.5, and I think the Rabbitohs win.
Do you? Okay.
Bennett will have him up for this. Bennett hates losing. He's lost 4 in a row.
Okay. Righto.
Who are you tipping there?
Find it a hard one. I thought the Dolphins were very poor last week after having a couple of weeks of really good form, and especially, in attack. So I don't know. I need to think about that one a bit more. I probably would be going Rabbitohs with start.
Go
is
to
my
Dolphins
thinking.
in the tipping comp.
Okay, thanks for your assistance on that. Sunday, 2 p.m, we have the Storm, very, very short price favourites against the Sharks. Now, let me remind you, the Sharks last start beat them.
They did 31-26. So, Steve, you're very good at maths. 31 plus 26 is 57?
That is correct.
57. Okay, so I reckon Sunday afternoon in Melbourne, this has got points written all over it, hasn't it? What? I mean, the Sharks, as we just touched on, absolutely crumbled last week, should have won that game. 3 of their last 4 they have lost. Those 3 games that they've lost, they've leaked 34, 40, 42. That adds up to a lot of points.
What do you reckon? What do you reckon it is there? I find
attitude.
it really. You reckon?
Attitude.
You reckon just from watching them, it's attitude? Because geez, the last couple of weeks they've been really poor, haven't they?
Well, you go back to that game where,
especially when you think about a side coached by Fitzy.
I've never seen Fitzy as exasperated and cranky as he was in his post-match presser last Sunday. 100% right. Go back to that game 4 games ago at Gosford against the Roosters, who had 7 or 8 players out, including all their rep players. The Roosters put 42 on them. All of a sudden it started to expose these issues in defence, and it's predominantly through the middle third of the park, where they actually have some big men and should dominate. Then gave them the benefit of the doubt when they come back to Shark Park, and then the Warriors put 40 on them. And then 2 games ago, the Dragons lead them 18-6 and should have gone on with that. They're in big trouble. They go down to Melbourne, back-to-back road games. I think that's a worry. Listen, the Storm are not convincing at the present moment. You know, they led 12 last week very early against the Rabbitohs, didn't put them away, goes to Golden Point time. They come up with a close win. But their best form's been back at Melbourne. But the key thing here, Stephen, is in Melbourne, afternoon day games, the last 11 of these games, 10 out of 11 have gone points over. I think in Melbourne, these 2 teams, it rains points. I'm with the Storm. I think they cover the 10.5, but I do like the total points over 47.5.
I think I don't know what you're hearing, but I'm sort of hearing we might not see much of their big winger, Warbury.
Yeah. Paul Feller's had a really bad.
Doesn't sound good. Yeah, I think. Yes. Okay. So, do you think? Like, what do you think the margin is here if you go on Storm? 13 plus?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the market's got it 10. I think it's 10 10, 12,
Mm.
14. But I think they're going to go try for try. I think there's going to be a heap of points.
I think it's a little bit disappointing. I really don't see. I don't want to see the Sharks sort of die in the butt coming into the finals, but because they've done a lot of good work. But I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that they're going to be there when the whips are cracking. Now might
Well,
they might end up in the bottom part of the 8. Just on that, where did they rank as far as their draw?
yeah, the draw was okay. But, their run here onwards, next week, well, sorry, they got the bye. Then they got the Dolphins, they got the Roosters, they got the Rabbits. That's not going to be straightforward. Then they get a couple of softer games. So, the draw was sort of, probably 6 to 7 out of 10 hard. Last year was very soft. This year was much harder.
Yeah. Okay.
I think if there's 3 out of their last 4 where they're leaking nearly 40 points, I can't see them turning that around.
Yeah, so we're calling them probably line through them, not the real deal in
Yeah,
2020.
I think they're in
25.
free fall. And I think what that means, Steve, is what does Fitzy then do with their list?
Yeah, well, I think we've been talking about it for a few weeks, but what does he do with the halfback?
Correct.
7-year deal on big money. Good on him. I mean, he had that purple patch for, wasn't a full season, but for a period where he was able to put in place his management was able to put in place a big deal, 7-year deal at $1 million. Jesus, he's not $1 million player at present, is he? Not even close.
He could probably go to Newcastle and get it, though.
Yeah, the Dragons don't need any halves. Righto, talking about leaking points, 4:05, last game of the round, Titans versus Cowboys. Oh dear.
Yeah, this is ugly, isn't it? You got the Titans who have lost 9 of their last 11. You've got the Cowboys who've got 1 win from their last 7, and both of them leaking 30-odd points a week on average. I actually just thought that with this Cowboys side this week, 2 key things. One is they get 4 ins, 4 key player ins, which is going to help them considerably. Notably, they also get the rep players as part of that and Jake Clifford. Jake Clifford's back. And when Jake Clifford plays in the halves with Tommy Dearden, it lengthens their kicking game and their winning record. You look at that team, we go back 6 or 7 weeks ago, that team on paper, when nearly full strength, we were looking at a potential top 6 side. Now they get all these players back. They're desperate for a win. Their road record and their record as a favourite in this setup is very good. I just don't rate the Titans. I think there's a big gap between these two. I can't believe the market only has it 3.5-point favourites. I do like the Cowboys to be winning, breaking back into the winning record and covering the line.
Righto, so give us a wrap before we go to best bets, multis, everything else.
Yeah, I'm with a few upsets this week. I think the Panthers game 1. I think the Tigers game 2. I think the Raiders just get over the Knights. I think the Warriors can beat the Broncos. I think the Dragons win down at the Gong. I think the Rabbitohs cause an upset in Brisbane. I think the Storm win. I think there's a lot of points there. And I think the Cowboys win the last one. And my best for the week was the Storm Sharks over 47.5.
Sharks over 40. Okay, interesting. Righto, this is what I'm doing. Do you want to know what I'm doing?
I do.
Okay,
You
please
you win the Dragons?
get the dials up. No, well, I'm only employed by the podcast to come up with multis. So I'm going Panthers.
Yes.
Okay. Hang on. 1 second. I've got to double check. Just go to my number crunching into the Tigers with start.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think this is the one I had. Just let me check the numbers. That's not that one. It's not that one. Into the Storm. Okay, that's my multi. Should be
What's
just
that?
done.
There you go.
That's what I'm thinking. Right, and we are throwing up 1,000. Yep, for one person that picks, not multiple, one person that
One
picks
person,
around.
one out. Okay.
Yep, picks the round.
Will do.
Righto. Well, thank you, Mr. Matrix.
Get your tips in, folks. There's about 14 people within 2 points of each other at the top of the table. It is as wide open as the NRL.
Okay, just on that, what is your advice to all our listeners that are in the tipping comp if you haven't taken your wild card, when to take your wild card? I'm asking for a friend.
Yes, well, I happen to be a friend that hasn't taken his wild card yet either, and I think I might be only one of about 3 in the top 15 that are yet to play it.
Yeah, I'm up there. I haven't taken mine,
Yeah.
but I think I might
I
take mine this weekend.
okay. So you've tipped 3 upsets, and you're also gonna do
That'd be really smart, wouldn't it? No, I was thinking about it, but I'm not thinking about it anymore. Righto, Mr. Matrix, thank you very much. We will be back next week. Is our Origin team's name this Sunday night or is it the following week?
that they are Sunday and Monday.
Oh, okay.
Now, have you booked your call with the bank manager?
What for?
Monday.
Oh, Origin, you're thinking New South Wales 13 plus, third game?
Just back the truck up.
Okay, there's an early tip. Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. Righto, thank you. Have a
Be
lovely
good.
evening. Yep, thank
See
you.
ya.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.